Hello and welcome to the Quarantined Wargamer. I'm Big Lee, and today I wanted to talk about a problem that's bugged me for years: lack of labelling of some show games. So today's video is sort of prompted by the fact that I wanted to share some photographs of old shows that I've been to. It seems it's been like a long time, a very long time since I've been to a wargame show, and I feel like we could all do with a virtual show. So I thought I'd shove some nice photos that I'd taken at some previous wargame shows. But it also brought up the subject for me of where tables are poorly labelled or have no display information whatsoever. And also, unfortunately, very rare nowadays, but tables where game clubs are put on a demo game and then don't interact with the public. Now, I've written about this on my blog a couple of times, I think 2009 and again 2014, and I say things have gotten better since then. Nothing to do with me, I don't take any credit for that. It's just hopefully clubs and groups that put on games have learned some lessons as the years have passed, but it still does occasionally happen. So the following are some photos taken from various different shows that I've been to, some going back, a decade, but that I've chosen photographs where I've got a selection of pictures of a particular table that also include some pictures of the table labelling or a demonstration or a display that the group have put on with that game. So I hope you enjoy the photographs. And apologies in advance for the rather poor sound quality. I'm trying out some new recording equipment for audio, and I'm going to have to buy something different. Over the years, I have attended a lot of conventions and shows, and as any regular reader of my blog will know, I always go camera in hand. As a result, I've developed a very clear opinion of what I personally like and don't like about demo games at shows. My main gripe has always usually revolved around those thankfully few tables where information and interaction are virtually non-existent, and the spectator is left feeling awkward and unwanted. The situation has become noticeably less common over the years, but it's certainly not gone away altogether. It would be nice to see some demo tables with more information available to visitors. Some of the tables provide information sheets about their games, but often the majority don't, and this isn't in itself a problem if you're the sort of person who feels comfortable sparking a conversation with the guys at the table. But not all visitors are old grognards eager for a chat. A large proportion are drop-ins, or newbies, or the significant others of newbies, and it's easy to see how they can feel intimidated when trying to break into this clique of wargamers standing around a table. Think back to your first ever show and how strange and new it all was. You probably didn't know anyone, apart from maybe the one or two mates who came with you, and the place was full of strange sights and smells. Oh yes, Game of Funk, don't get me started on that subject. I guess I feel the problem a little more acutely because I like to come away from a show with lots of pictures. It's easy for me to go to somewhere like SELWG and come away with 500 or 600 photographs. Trying to figure out who was playing on what table and what their game was can sometimes be a bit of a challenge at the end of the day. It's a sad fact that when I attend shows, I nearly always come across a demo game that lacks any kind of identifying label of sign, and these tables very rarely, the pictures of their games very rarely make it onto my blog, because if I have no clue who or what they were, I won't bother putting it on my blog. When signs are present, however, I always try to take a picture that includes the label as an aide-memoire for later, for when I'm identifying or captioning my photographs. This is especially true for larger shows like SELWG, where there may be more than one Napoleonic game or multiple American Civil War games being run, and trying to remember which was which after the event can be a bit tricky. Of course, I always try to spark up a conversation with those that are running the games, but it can be very hard to remember every conversation and every game correctly. Getting a picture of the label with the table cuts through all that confusion and ensures that when I'm trying to label my photographs at the end of the day, those that have run a good demo game get the credit they deserve. Now for me, the whole purpose of running a demo table is to demonstrate the hobby. The clue's in the name after all. And that means more than just plonking the models on the table and having a game. In my experience, a significant portion of visitors attending shows, particularly the smaller regional shows, come to see aspects of our hobby that they're not normally familiar with, something that's a bit more out of their experience. Some of these visitors are new to the hobby. They may be their children or their significant others. Other people that are coming, such as hordes of young'uns attracted by the likes of Games Workshop, may only be involved in a niche, and I may be casting around looking for other games and periods to play. Failure to engage them is a lost opportunity to broaden their horizons and retain them within the hobby. It seems to me that one of the main purposes of a wargame show is to act as a sort of outreach program to draw in new players. Now that may sound a little bit highfalutin and grand, but new blood coming into our hobby is a genuine and repeated concern and a recurring theme of many magazine articles written by the great and the good of our hobby. So having pontificated about the lack of communication with visitors, I guess I really ought to say what I personally would like to see associated with a demo game, either in a handout or nearby signs and labels. And here's my own personal list of stuff I'd like to know about each game that I have viewed. First and foremost, the name of the club or the organisation running the table. Not all games tables are correctly labelled, and not all clubs wear a t-shirt with their logo emblazoned on it. So that is the first thing I want to know, who's running this game. Also some information about the name or the title of the game being played. Again, so that I can label the photographs correctly and quote them correctly when I'm writing them on my blog or elsewhere. Some information that's specific to the period or the specific dates of the battle being played, because not everyone's familiar with your particular niche period. You may think it's the only thing to play, but maybe somebody else has got a different period and they're not so familiar with it. Some information on the rule system being used. Now that may be your own in-house rule system that you've written yourself, or it may be a commercial set of rules, or it could be a combination of both. Information on that is always really interesting. The scale of the miniatures being used. Now we all recognise that scale creep is a thing, and you may have miniatures from multiple manufacturers on the table, and it can be interesting, for it may be the only time when we get to see models from different manufacturers for the same period and supposedly the same scale next to each other. So it's interesting to have some information in your handouts or on the labels and displays that say what miniatures are being used and who makes them. Now, if you're at a show that has assigned you a table number or a reference for your particular location within the hall, try and put that somewhere on your label as well, because again, that helps the prospective photographer, such as myself, to identify that table by looking at the floor plan. Now, an obvious one, if you're a club trying to tout for new members, put your contact details on the display or on the handouts that you're doing. There's no point putting on a display game to attract new members if they've got no way of knowing who you are and how to contact you. Now, as a photographer and as a blogger, I like to know the names of the demonstrators, who's taking part in the game, so some information about that as well, so they get some credit when I'm writing up my notes or when I'm doing a show report. Now, obviously, another obvious one is some background and historical context. Now, this is something that often does get included in in handouts that clubs provide. It doesn't have to be very long, just a few paragraphs maybe. And again, as I said earlier, it may be that your niche period or interest is not somebody else's. So what you're displaying may be completely new to them. So a little bit of information to pique their interest is always good. And then a little bit of additional information about the terrain. If it's a scratch-built terrain, who did it? They deserve some credit. If you're showing off commercial terrain, who makes it? So information like that, as well as information on the miniatures, is very useful. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it does represent the sort of questions I find myself asking over and over again, and forgetting the answers again over and over again. It would be great if each demo table could provide some sort of handout with basic details on it, but simple display, a little sign or a poster that could be photographed would be just as useful. And as I've said several times, things are getting better, and the unlabeled tables with uncommunicative players huddled around them are becoming fewer and fewer. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video and those pictures. as usual, if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, consider subscribing to my channel, and of course please feel free to leave some comments here on YouTube or over on my blog, Big Lee's Miniature Adventures. So until next week, as usual, I just want to hope that everyone's staying safe and well, and of course keep rolling high.